thanks for joining us today. So, Rosa, tell us really quick for viewers that don't know, what is Agenda 21 and why should people be concerned?
Agenda 21 is, you'll hear about it, you'll think, hey, is that Catch-22? Is it Area 51? What is it? It's a real United Nations plan. It was implemented in 1992. And at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It was signed on to by 179 nations. It's soft law. It's not a treaty, so it was not ratified by our Congress, and it was agreed to by George H.W. Bush in 1992. And what it is, it's the plan to implement sustainable development worldwide. It's actually the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all plants, all minerals, all construction, all means of production, all education, all information, and all human beings in the world. In other words, everywhere that human beings interact with the world, with the environment, or with each other, this is all inventoried and controlled. This is a very essential part of the plan to know, is that you will be tracked, monitored, and controlled through this plan.
Well, so I know last week Oklahoma just passed a new ban, their state law or statewide ban against Agenda 21, and they're joining Alabama and also Kansas, I believe,
Kentucky.
now in banning in Kentucky. So what are some new ways that the fight against Agenda 21 is winning?
Well, it's really important to take it to the legislative level because, believe it or not, a lot of legislators don't even know about Agenda 21 or what it is, Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. They may think they know what sustainable development is, but they don't really understand that behind that green mask is this plan to inventory and control through technology. It's really globalization is the standardization of systems. So, yes, several states, of course, I think there are 9 states right now that are actually in the stages of trying to pass legislation to block Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, and to outlaw collaboration with nonprofits like ICLEI, the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives, that are engaged in implementing Agenda 21. And it goes, of course, it's all the way through the system. So it mainly comes into your town, though, as a land use plan for smart growth and the Wildlands Project. So people don't recognize what it looks like. So that's when
it sounds so good.
It sounds good. And that's one reason why, like Alabama passed it not long ago, the governor signed it into law, this ban against Agenda 21. But then right on the heels of that, Baldwin County tried to pass their general plan, and it was 100% Agenda 21, but because you don't see that term in there, a lot of people didn't realize it, and they really had to push back.
Right.
So it's happening everywhere now.
So, well, what do you say to people who say, this is just an old document, it's from 1992, it's non-binding, and so it's no big deal, and it's not really anything we need to be concerned about?
Yeah, you
hear that all the time.
Of course you do.
And if you say anything, you're crazy, you need to wear a tinfoil hat.
Yeah, and you got a tinfoil hat. That's what they do. Of course, your disinformation agents, people who are actually controlled opposition, they'll tell you not to mention Agenda 21, or they'll tell you you're crazy, the mainstream press. In fact, it is a non-binding agreement, but it was signed on to by the United States, and then the very next year, in 1993, President Clinton created the President's Council on Sustainable Development, and the sole purpose of that council, which was 10 federal agencies, along with a lot of energy producers like Dow Chemical and Enron.
Oh, lovely.
And the World Resources Institute, Sierra Club, and other environmental groups. Their entire task was to implement Agenda 21 in the United States. And that is exactly what they did through federal agencies that have changed their policies. And of course, now they're using grants and all kinds of pressure on states and local agencies. It's a global plan, but it's implemented locally.
Well, actually, I saw this today. For people that say this doesn't exist, this is actually from the UN Sustainable Development Knowledge Platform's Twitter account. And they actually say on here, Agenda 21 established 9 major groups for UN to formally engage civil society for the future we want. Yeah. So they make it sound all-inclusive. It's the future we want. And there's 9 major groups, and they're and they said, find out more here. And
yeah.
so they're really trying to get people on board. We're civil society, and this is the future we want.
Yeah, the future we want. That's actually what they called, they had their 20th anniversary of the Rio Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil this past June, and they called it the future we want. It's like, hey man, this is not the future we want. This is the future you want.
I'm going to tell you this is the future we want.
Right, they're telling you.
I'm grabbing you under the table and holding you hostage.
But civil society, you know, what that is, you know, supposedly that's like all of us joining together, you know, us the people and we the people, and saying what we want. But really that's a lie. What civil society is now is nonprofit organizations that have teamed up with government and huge corporations to give the illusion that there's public buy-in on these plans. And so it's being rammed through all over the world. It's happening right now.
Yeah, actually, I'm late to the game on this. I just came across this document today, and it was funded by the EU and the World Wildlife Fund, and it's from a group called the One Planet Economy Network, and it's scenarios for a one planet economy in Europe. And it kind of goes along with, they keep mentioning 2050 in here, which I know on your website, Democrats Against UN Agenda 21, they actually mentioned One World, One Vision 2050. Well, in here it's 2050 for Europe. And they have these scenarios that they say may or may not happen if we don't get on board with carbon taxes, get on board with being environmentally friendly and everything. And one of them actually says, I'm going to read this to you and get your reaction to this. Nearly every aspect of life is heavily regulated by the state. In 2050, Europeans are forced to adopt green lifestyle habits, for example, bans on non-essential individual long-distance travel. And it also says the state controls or heavily influences all available channels of education, media, and marketing to spread this message, to continually reinforce the adoption and mold perceptions of sustainability. So there's that word again. And then it says civil society also plays a role in selling this message of green lifestyles. So there again we have that civil society. And actually there was another scenario in here that mentioned a footprint tax. And I mean, again, I'm new to the game on that. I had not heard of a footprint tax. I had heard of a carbon tax and cap and trade and all that, but footprint tax actually encapsulates the carbon tax with an ecological tax and a water tax and something else, and it puts it all together and makes this new footprint tax, like you exist, give us money.
Right, yeah,
So.
you basically, your footprint, you know, right now considered in the United States, every single human being in the United States basically would owe about $457 a year just to live, just to exist.
You got up this morning, give us $457.
Yeah, you know, this is again, I mean, on that scenario, I would say it's not going to take until 2050, you know, if we don't do something about it. I mean, this is happening right now. They're really moving towards this. This is the goal, to have the state involved in every aspect of your life. It's about creating total dependency on the government, and it's about behavioral modification. So whether they have to use, you know, they're trying to use, you know, at first they'll do it to you in your school and your place of business.
It's very trendy right now.
Right,
it's the
cool.
future we want.
But those few people who are going to hold out against it, you know, then it's going to be force. You know, then you'll be required, and then you'll be paying taxes, you know, to use water. If you want to use more than 10 gallons of water a day, you know, obviously you're not going to be able to. You'll be restricted. This is about creating artificial scarcity, and then using that as, you know, as part of this culture of emergency, and making it so that you are literally too paralyzed to do anything to fight this, you know, and that you will go along to get along. And you're saving the planet.
Right.
You know?
Well, they say they scare everybody into thinking this world is hugely overpopulated and that humans are the biggest blight on the planet, and that we're doing this so we deserve all of these things to happen to us because we're just wrecking the planet every day. And we're told that. We're just reaffirmed that every day in the media and in movies and just everywhere.
Hey, imagine being a little kid in school right now and being told that you are killing the planet.
Yeah.
You know, imagine the pressure on a child, and then also that you can save it. You know, look at what that means for a child to have that kind of...
The weight of the world literally on your shoulders.
I know,
literally.
when you're 6 years old, it's like, I'm brushing my teeth, I shouldn't be running the water too long.
What am I doing? I'm hurting the planet every moment. Yeah,
right.
It's horrifying. Well, actually, I came across this as well. The European Commission just put out this report called A Decent Life for All, Ending Poverty and Giving the World a Sustainable Future. And basically, in this document, they're saying they're going to now take it upon themselves, the European Commission, to implement Agenda 21, like as the mothership there, through an overarching unified policy framework. They always have these great titles for that. But basically, it's an environmental global governance scientific dictatorship. That's basically what this is. And this just came out. So this is recent now. They're saying they're going to do it. But there's so many groups, it's hard to even keep track of all these reports.
I know, you got 3 people, you have 9 groups, you know.
It's everywhere.
And this is it. And of course the EU, you know, is like, I mean, everywhere is ground zero, but the EU is already, you know, way along, because this plan is about regionalization. It's about destroying jurisdictional boundaries and about creating these mega cities and mega regions so that you literally have no influence on what goes on in your government. And you might feel like that now, but think about, you know, you have you have a representative government now, but the mask will be completely off, you know, and then you'll have something like the EU that is basically run from Brussels, and individual nations have very little power. So this is the goal, and they always use that green mask of getting rid of poverty and, you know, being all cool with the environment and everything's going to be great.
Like here, for example, here in Austin, everywhere they're knocking down whole areas, and then they're putting up these mixed-use development buildings, which are basically like these tiny apartments with these little tiny, you know, you can go outside in your little garden area that's like this tiny, and then it's on top of all of these businesses. So basically you work there, you live there, and all you see when you drive by it is just a huge front of you know, this building with all these bicycles all over it, because of course if you're going to live there and work there, why would you need a car? That's bad for the environment. You know? And everybody is moving into these because it's just so trendy. How do we get people to realize they're buying into their own enslavement basically through trendiness?
Yeah, well, you know, the thing that's about that, I mean, if those were built without government subsidies, it'd be like, yeah, cool, I don't care. You want to go live in an apartment on top of a shop? Go for it. But these are paid for with government subsidies for infrastructure and for development. Your taxes pay for those because they're not in demand. And, you know, maybe in center cities like, you know, maybe some parts of Austin or something, and some parts of San Francisco, but they're putting these things out all across the nation.
They're going out into towns of less than 2,000 people and saying we need to have these mixed development tiny buildings. And in Texas, I mean, you can drive for hundreds, I mean, you can drive a very long way in the dark and see nothing. It's just empty land.
I know, and people, you know, a lot of people don't realize that about the nation. If you fly over the nation, and of course I have a carbon footprint, you know, like the size of the Empire State Building probably, because I go back.
You need to pay your footprint tax, Rosa. What are you thinking?
You know, when you look down, it's an agricultural country that we live in, and it's big. And the thing is that when you are subsidizing high-density development, you're building vertical sprawl in the centers of cities, and that is a huge pressure on your infrastructure. And also, you know, think about this: if you want a dog, if you have kids, if you
can shove them in the closet.
You know, where are they going to go? Of course, dogs eat meat, and meat eating is unsustainable.
Yes.
So
yes, well, apparently everything we're doing now is unsustainable. It's pretty much all on the list. So, what kind of future then, if these people have their way? What kind of sustainable, efficient future are we actually going to have?
Yeah, it's pretty tough when you really look at it, because we're talking about mega regions, mega cities, which are basically densely developed, high, you know, what are they? They're like tall, super tall buildings, you know, in the centers of cities, and you basically will not be able to live outside of those. And you're not going to...
Everything you do will be tightly controlled.
And you'll get your 10 gallons of water a day. You'll have to pay your carbon tax. You'll pay your water tax. You'll pay your footprint tax. You're literally not going to be able to eat anything that didn't come from right around there. So you're not going to be, you know, sourcing food from anywhere else. This is the real hit on the locavore thing, you know, is that you're not going to be able to get food from anywhere else. And, of course, if you have restrictions on water, this is going to have a huge impact on what you can grow in the area. You're not.
Well, they don't want anybody growing anything now.
No,
they're breaking down on people's backyard gardens.
That's
now.
it. It's like they don't want you to be independent. And who's they? It's the federal government, it's the corporations, and it's civil society in a huge sort of cabal together. You know, the huge banks. We're talking about you know, the continuation of the Nazi system. This is really what it's about. And you know, people think that, I mean, you might think I'm fear-mongering. Unfortunately, I'm not. This is
in their documents.
This is reporting on the reality of their plan. This is the future they want.
Exactly. And then they use the Delphi technique when they go into these meetings to sell it to the to the people.
Yeah, and think, you know, I mean, I'm so like fired up about this because think about the Delphi technique, man. That is a Rand Corporation mind control technique that's being used now in government meetings. When you're brought in to a meeting, you know, here in the Central Texas area and told, you know, that, or anywhere in the United States, and told to give your opinion on this new plan.
Yeah, choose between these 4 options and you don't want any of them.
Right, and it's too bad. And the thing is designed to give the illusion of public buy-in, but it's also designed to neutralize the opposition and to convert enemies. Think about that. They are propagandizing you, and they literally will, when the people who are running those meetings will literally sideline you, malign you, and shame you. They use communitarian tactics to shame you so you won't speak out.
Yeah, well, they actually had a meeting here recently, and we weren't able to attend, but it was all about how to handle the opposition when they come to these meetings. So, and the opposition would be anybody who comes in there and has even the biggest question about, why do I need this? Why are you here?
You dare to question.
Why are you in my small town of 2,000 people telling me I need to move into a mixed-use development workshop? Workshop houses were actually on, at the meetings I went to, several of those clicker questionnaires where they were asking people, what do you think about workshop? Like, they just put that in there, like, what do you think about a house with some land and also a workshop house? But these meetings are predetermined, aren't they?
Totally. The entire thing, you know, you may think it's unique to your town. It is not. It's the same all across the nation and the world. These plans are all the same plan. And the plan calls for high-density development in the center of your city, no private vehicles, restriction on mobility, restriction on every aspect of your life, and also the infiltration of your educational system with Common Core. Standardization of systems, that's uniformity and bringing everything into so-called harmonization so that it can be more easily managed and controlled.
And we can be the civil society. Well, what do we do? What do we do now to fight this?
Well, hey, get on board, you know, don't get paralyzed by this. Don't think that, you know, there's nothing you can do, because guess what? There's, you know, the resistance is growing constantly, day by day, and people are getting the information. You want to get the info out. We've got flyers on our websites, you know, that you can print out. You take that
and that's Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.
Right, Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com. Yeah, go on there. Print out those flyers, you know, take one and take it to a copy place, get 100, walk them around and put them on doorsteps. Don't hand them to people, you know, because you'll be arguing with them all day. And then you want to educate yourself and others. You want to go to those government meetings and you want to anti-Delphi them. And I tell you how to do that in my book, How to Anti-Delphi a Meeting. Yeah.
Here it is right here.
And
there's the book.
Yeah, there's the book.
Right there.
And, you know, basically what you want to do is refuse to collaborate and expose collaborators. Bring your video camera with you when you go to these government meetings. And, you know, they're bringing men with guns into these meetings. I'm talking about police officers.
They are doing that. And I've been witness to that several times.
Yes, and they're in there because they don't want you saying something.
The second time I went to one of these meetings, I was just sitting at the table just taking notes. Just and one of the meeting people came around and tried to stand right behind my shoulder. Just like, you know, and it was so obvious, and I just turned and looked right in his face, like, why are you doing that? It's pretty obvious why, but, you know, and he just gave me a look like I could go die in a fire and then walked away. But, I mean, they're very intimidated, but also intimidating to people who, you know, don't know any better, so.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the thing, is to be tough, be strong. Don't allow them to intimidate you, because these people are committing treason. And this is the reality. This is it. And, you know, we are growing in our force. We are speaking out. We are taking over our government meetings. We're removing people from office who are collaborators. We're educating our legislators and our sheriffs. And we are taking back our nation and the world. This is everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, wherever you are, it's happening there, too.
And that's how it needs to be. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rosa. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are we good? We're good. I'll look into that camera there, but usually we just look at each other. And
okay.
I only turn and...
That is really pink, isn't it?